did we ruin the idea, or did we just come up with a new idea of marriage to the point where it's just no longer convincing to the modern man?
Media in general has covered the tragedies and the travesties of marriage to such a degree that we don't have a personal experience. We don't have a personal frame of reference. If we don't have a family that we grew up in, if we didn't grow up in a household with marriage or healthy relationships, and we don't know anybody around us because we know what poverty does to the family structure, right? And we're talking. And if we're going to be honest, the black
Mm-hmm.
space is predominantly what we were focusing on. Of course, other
Right.
races are invited in this conversation, but the predominant issue is the black family, the black family. We know what poverty does to the black family. So most of these young men who are perpetuating this idea that marriage has no benefits haven't seen healthy relationships, don't come from two-parent households, a lot of them, and the ones that do, there's a whole plethora of experiences that they might be having that they don't like or that they didn't like to see. So your frame of reference creates your reality. I think that this red pill shit doesn't help because it provides this idea that a man should be 100% happy with everything that a woman adds to his life at all times. And that's just not how life works, because a woman is never 100% happy with what a man adds. So I think social media in general, being on the outside of marriage, looking into marriage, I always say broke people say broke shit, right? People who don't have a frame of reference to finances talk crazy about how people with finances should be managing their finances, using their finances, and count other people's money. Well, in the same way as broke people saying broke shit, single people say single shit. And when you don't
Mm.
understand partnership, when you don't understand support, when you don't understand love, when you haven't been those things, a person's rock, when a person hasn't been your rock, when you haven't been vulnerable and weak and desperate with a person, when you haven't struggled together, when you were not willing to struggle together, you don't get to speak on the value of marriage because you have no frame of reference. It's
Mm.
again, it's people who don't have experience, don't have wisdom, knowledge, or understanding, trying to train other people about what is valuable and not valuable based on their experiences or lack thereof. I just think it's foolishness to listen to someone who's single, hasn't even found a girlfriend to tell you about the benefits of marriage or partnership or love. That's why so many black men, if we want to start to talk to statistics, and I'm going to give you I'm long-winded, brother, so forgive me.
Mm.
But
It's all good.
a lot of black men are in the nursing homes dying alone because
Yeah.
they didn't slow down, they didn't get out these streets, and they didn't value their children's, youth when they had it, and they had the advantage of being the hero. They didn't operate in marriages, they didn't operate in permanent unions or even, satisfying unions for them or their partners. And so we're the ones that are suffering. Where women are suffering, absolutely, but men are suffering as much just later in life for the decisions that we make to downplay marriage and partnership and love in general.
Like I was thinking about if I wasn't married and I hit that elderly age where it ain't working no more and I'm in that home just chilling, how many of the women that I smashed are gonna come by that nursing home to see me? Probably none of them because
Mm-mm.
they're wifed up, they're moved on,
Right.
they settled in, they are straight, they're not thinking about me anymore. And here I am, just pretty much just playing backgammon, with older Chad,
Right.
in the home and everything.
Right.
Weave, of course, Kev had to empty the clip, but go ahead,
Hey,
elaborate.
my bad, brother. I'm gonna
Well,
do that
no,
every time.
Kev
I
gonna
think
be Kev. Weave, like
I
it's all
think
good, but go ahead, Weave, take it.
I think actually to build on something Kev spoke about in the beginning, as the black community, like I don't feel like we've ever been bound by a legal document. At least
Mm-hmm.
not where I come from.
Right.
We are the least married by percentage of any ethnic group in the United States, and I don't believe there's a fear of marriage. More so, there's a comfort found. I think on two sides, there's a comfort found in the freedoms that aren't in the traditional norms. And to Kev's point, like, if you come from a background where you never saw those types of relationships or marriage being such a pinnacle point in your life, then you have no tangible incentive to being married in a literal sense. You don't get an award for committing to a woman you love, right? Like there's no
Right.
award behind that. You don't get some type of medal of honor. Like the incentive for any man needs to make sense though, right? And make
Right.
sense in the fact that you're now legally putting your name to paper and hopefully ensuring a stable future with your wife, for yourself, for your kids, for your in-laws. But marriage isn't a small thing. Like I'm essentially telling you that I'm committed to this bond for a lifetime. And the hope is that we share the same level of respect and trust necessary to continue to keep falling in love with each other over and over again. Because
Mhm.
just like a relationship, marriage takes a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not willing to invest that type of work, then it's kind of pointless, right? And so I honestly do not. So I'm kind of the opposite of you guys. I don't follow the 3,000 different kind of pills that there are and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's a toxicity that comes with a lot of it, and I think that it puts you in a position where you begin hating women. And I don't know what benefits there are found in that. But I think in the grand scheme of things, to one of Kara's points about vulnerability, you begin hating yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you begin trying to take that picture of what you think life should be, what life should be like, all the hoes that a guy is stunting with on social media or in a music video, and you think that's reality. But for 99% of us, it's not. So you have to make a decision. We're not built to live solitary lives.
Mm.
We're not built that way. So at the end
Right.
of the day, you either want to invest that time and make it something official. There's a lot of live-ins, a lot of common law marriage, like a lot of like, hey, we've been down for 20 years. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be bound by that legal document, but at the end of the day, what I found in benefit of the marriage that I have is unlike anything I've ever had. So in some cases it can transform your life, and then in some cases you have a skewed perspective of what marriage is in the first place. So
Yeah,
I, I,
facts.
I want to add something to that. First of all, amazing points. But the thing that I was thinking about while you was going through that was, first of all, I don't really follow any of it. People just get pissed off and then they send me clips. Have you seen this? Make a video about this motherfucker. Like, and most of the time I don't. I don't even want to be. I don't want to be. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world, so to
Yeah.
speak.
oh,
Okay,
same here,
Send them
same
to
but
here,
me,
man.
Kev. I'll do
right.
it.
Send
But
it to Reese.
what I was noticing is that like these are the men who have platforms. All of us in social media. Once you establish yourself in social media, you immediately have more options than the average guy who thinks he has options, right? So it's men with options. Maybe in person they got game, and on the internet they got charm. It's men with options telling a bunch of men who don't have options have a whole lot less opportunity for love and really need to be taking advantage of any real opportunities that they get, that marriage, partnership, love, and relationships are just there's no room for them. It's nonsensical. It's garbage. It's nonsense. It's simpery to love a woman. But these are men who are turning down hundreds of the most beautiful women that most of these men will never get the chance to date. Right. So again, it's a bunch of people who aren't in a position to turn down the opportunity, and not only will they go, I think Lisa made a point when we were talking. A lot of us aren't even making it to the nursing homes because it's partnership that causes
Mm.
us to take care of ourselves. My wife is like, "Man, you feeling all right? You need to go to the doctor." Like that shit means a whole lot when you start thinking about what partnership does for the health of a man, for the life expectancy of a man. It's just different, and a lot of these men don't have the opportunity of love that the guys that are teaching them don't love a woman have. You'll never be your red pill idol, and you'll never have the hundreds of women he have. But if you're listening to him, you're turning down the three girls that want you. Eventually your ugly ass is going to be somewhere sitting alone. So just to be clear, most of these guys aren't high value. They're just watching the spectacle like wrestling fans.
Already made a few people mad, but then again, you guys know I'm balanced. Of course, on the other side of the game, like my special Good Bar Boulevard shameless plug. Notice that I have men who are pretty much loving the company of women. They don't hate
Mm-hmm.
women. They're not mad at them. Shoot, most of them are married or they're actually in relationships. So they'll pretty much tell you there's more to life than just smash and dash. When they talk about attraction, when people are like, when you see like these men, these young men, especially when they're talking about like, or they're trying to look for videos on how to attract a woman, you're not doing that just to smash, because once you attract that woman, obviously what's next if she's
Mm-hmm.
looking at you? You still got to go over there and talk.
Mm-hmm.
You do. At the end of the day, you still got to have somewhat of a mouthpiece. I'm sorry, Philip. You know, my gentleman selves will probably get mad at me for saying this, but yeah, you're going to have to entertain that woman some way or form of fashion. You could sit there and say like, "Yo, but I'm the prize." If it's anything, I'm supposed to choose her, but it's like you forgot. She has to like you too. And a lot of men out there get a little bit butt hurt and feel a certain way when they find out that old girl ain't liking them. Then it's like you just said, well, fuck you, bitch. You ain't shit. You're gonna die alone. You hit the wall. All of a sudden, all of these excuses flare out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere, out of this dude's mouth of why this chick's single. If you assume or if you already found out that she was single, unfortunately. And then on the other end, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, there's no incentive for being married. Should there be a freaking like reward for becoming a husband?
I think the reward, if the reward needs to be kind of like this table conversation, what do women bring to the table? If the reward needs to be explained to you, then you aren't prepared to give it in its total capacity to a woman. Like you aren't prepared to be a partner if partnership needs to be explained to you, right? No, there's no reward. No one's going to suck your dick like every day. No one's going
Yeah.
to give you money, work for you, cook you food 5 times. Like they're looking for employees. So the men who are talking about the value of love, relationships, companionship, partnership, they're looking for employees. They're looking for servitude. They value dominance. I understand that those are alluring to a guy who has been told no too many times, who hasn't gotten his way, or who hasn't seen a strong woman that he also respects, right? Or who hasn't done the jobs of a man, so he thinks that a woman is supposed to always do the job of a man. Like the value and the benefit of marriage is having someone to go through life with, and all that entails, spiritually, emotionally, energetically, intellectually, right? Like, as you grow, you want to grow with someone, and we always hear on the movies, I want someone to share, I got this, I got that, I want somebody to share it with.
Right.
Sharing the experience of life outside of solitude is the biggest reward, if we're just going to generalize a reward. These men want services. So when they're
Mm.
asking people, well, what's the benefit of marriage? They want services, and they know that a woman who's married is empowered to not just submit herself to services. She's a human being. There's a little bit of equality that is given up. Even if you don't want equality in your home, a woman who has you and is married to you might be like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, I don't feel like it, or do that shit yourself, or what did you just say? Who are you talking to? These men don't want that level of comfort because it comes with some entitlement. She's entitled to your best, not just the vice versa, the inverse, right? And I think that doesn't look appealing to them. And so for them, it's like, well, what does marriage do besides stress me out? What does marriage do besides obligate me? What does marriage do besides give me responsibilities that I don't want?
Mm.
So they're looking at what it costs them. They're not looking at what it gives them, because they're not prepared to pay any cost for a woman, because they don't like women. They're still resentful of women. They haven't allowed
Mm.
themselves to heal, right? And there's this quote that says, "Anger does much more damage that the vessel is contained in than anything it can be poured upon." And these men are pouring their anger, or think they're pouring their anger on women, but they're actually just containing this hurt, and they're doing so much more damage to themselves. And in the long run, they'll sit back and wish that they had a woman to care for them, to wish that they got home, to pick them up off the floor if they look like they're having stroke symptoms, to wipe their ass if they're in the nursing home. They'll eventually want that, but it'll take a while for them to realize the damage that they're doing, because they're youthful, they're young, they're wild, they're having sex, and they think that sex is life, but life is so much more than that.
Is leadership a possible incentive of a marriage for men?
There's always a possible incentive of leadership for men. I mean, of course we say we want to lead, but if I'm thinking in more practical terms, real quick, not to get too off track, like 43% of divorce occurs because of a lack of commitment. Just figuring out that you're incompatible with somebody. So the question is, first of all, if you're talking marriage, are you making the commitment for the right reasons?
Right.
And do you know who you're truly marrying, right? Because the other thing is, what the hell is the rush? You know, as a man, we know everything else we want in our lives. We know what kind of car we want. We know what kind of careers we want to pursue. We know what kind of sports teams that we're loyal to. Like, so
Mm.
if we know all of those things, but we don't know if the woman that we want to marry is the woman that we want to marry, then we're more confused with the commitment to ourselves, right? And then in a relationship is not where you find happiness, it's where you share happiness, right?
Right.
If I
Mm.
don't come into that relationship as a happy man or content with my career or where I'm going right now, then more than likely I'm going to shy the hell away from a woman in the first place. But it's funny because I think about the Steve Harvey clip that I saw a couple years ago, and he said a man in his life will only change for one woman, right? And I believe in that because I think that as a man, like finding a woman who transforms his life, it takes a mentality shift into wanting to make that bigger commitment. So there's like this light bulb moment that goes off. But as a man in marriage, like you don't know if you're ready for that type of accountability until you feel that shit in your soul. Like
Yeah.
it's a different kind of mindset because it's a huge step towards solidifying your life in a way that you live and how you lived in the past. And to Kev's point, like, you know, and having someone to care about you, not just for the night. So
Right.
are you ready for that type of change? Are you ready to incorporate that as a new type of change than something that's different from your past? You can still grind in your career or your business. You can still live your life outside of that relationship or marriage, but there's a compromise you have to be willing to live with. And to Kev's point, if you don't want to compromise, you can stay single. But if you're gonna stay
Right.
single, don't complain about the shit,
Right.
Mm.
right? And on the flip side of that, if you don't feel that, she ain't the one. And guess what? That's okay too. You can keep it moving and continue walking your path. And if the right one does arrive, in my opinion, you know, right? Like there's always more intriguing questions than answers. But when you
Mhm.
walk in your purpose in life, like, and you have a woman, a strong, if we're talking specifically Black woman, you can't be intimidated by her greatness. Like her successes should be yours and vice versa, right? There's
Right.
still this mentality in some men that you need to be her end all be all, right? To Kev's point earlier.
Mhm.
And that's not the world we live in 2022. Freedom is something we can all appreciate. That
Right.
ability to choose is not beyond anybody's level of happiness, but it isn't a one-way street. And
Mm-hmm.
in that marriage, you need to be able to put that partner in the word partnership. And if you're not willing to do that, then all the rewards and all of whatever you think you're gonna get in the world ain't gonna make no difference because you're still not happy with you.
And you made the point that if she's the right one, you know, you'll know. I think sometimes we focus so much on if if they're the right one
Mm-hmm.
or if they're the partner that
Mm-hmm.
we forget to be the right one. We forget to be
Mm-hmm.
the partner, right? We forget to be
Mm-hmm.
good enough because we're looking for the perfect person or the perfect partner. As men, and at least what I'm seeing culturally and what I'm seeing across the manosphere and what I'm seeing across just dating advice in general, it's always, are they good enough? Are they good enough? Are they good enough? This implication that all I have to do is show up and be paid, right? Show up and have style, work alone, be paid, look good,
Mm-hmm.
and be wanted by the woman and women, and that's what makes me qualified for this marriage. What do you bring to the table? Because I have options, and it's like all you have is
Is
audacity,
that it?
sir. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You, you so focused on somebody being the perfect partner. What are you? What kind of partner are you? Let's take
Right.
away your job title, take away your dress shoes, your Gucci's, your Pradas, your belts, whatever the hell goofy shit you think makes you a great man that has nothing to do with what you offer a relationship that will come back to affect you. And when you start having kids, because we always have these conversations outside of the scope of parenthood. And shout out to the Fatherhood Village, my other channel. Go follow the Fatherhood Village if y'all want.
Mm-hmm.
But we always have these conversations outside of the scope of, well, what happens when a man and woman get together? Right now, he's
Mm-hmm.
focused on being high value or paid or being a man with options or being alpha. That's what his focus is. He's not focused on being a partner. He's focused on choosing the perfect partner. What type of childhood experience does his seed come up under if he's not focused on being a great man to his family? If he's
Right.
not focused on being a great man in his household? If he's not focused on being good enough for what he's been blessed with, right? If he's focused on making sure that he squeezes every ounce of juice out of this orange because he needs a reward for showing up and just being there, being married. are committing in whatever capacity you believe in, because there's a lot of different relationship structures. We need to focus as much on finding the perfect person as also being as close to perfect as we can, which, is obviously never a possibility to be perfect, but we need to be as good as we require others to be to us, to them. And that
Mm-hmm.
becomes the reward, right? The reward is giving to those you love. It's almost like, as a father, I know, and there's nothing like giving your child the one thing that they wanted, that they think they wasn't thinking they was going to get for Christmas, or
Mhm.
the one thing that they wanted for their birthday that only you could have bought, and decided unilaterally you either get it or you don't. You've been good or you bad. Like, giving people who you love the thing that gives them joy, whether that's a gift for a child, because that's how they register things, but loyalty for a woman, right? Comfort for a woman, security for a woman. When you give that person that you love the one thing that they really need or desire, that fulfills you, right?
Mm-hmm.
These men don't have that sense of urgency to serve as much as as much as the sense to be served. They
And
won't understand it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And Reese, to that point, with something we talked about last time we chopped it up, like there's this level of selflessness,
Yes.
right, that goes along
Mm-hmm.
with that. And when we're talking about vulnerability, right, we talked a little bit about like the Chris Rock joke, right, which like, hey, you're in the band, are you playing? Sometimes you said lead singer, and sometimes you playing the tambourine. Like at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, if you're not willing to make that compromise of cheering on, of
Mm-hmm.
sometimes playing in the background, right? Like, does it always have to be this alpha, I'm in charge, let me lay back and just receive, right? Or
Right.
can it be, to Kev's point, can it be that serve, right? Can we meet somewhere where we can compromise on this fact that, like, hey, look, nah, go, go be, right? Go do. I don't always have to be the lead singer in this band. And at the end of the day, yes, when you bring kids into it, like that partnership makes a world of difference, right? Because
Oh yeah.
now you have something that's, if it wasn't bigger than you before, the hope is that now you realize this shit don't mean nothing without this, without all of this. So when you sit back and you take a look and you gaze at like what you have, right? I got a house full of women. I got
Mm-hmm.
two daughters. And what kind of example am I setting, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I came from a background, which I did, of like not having that father figure, not seeing that type of relationship, but seeing that in black positive images on television, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, one of those was the Cosby's or Martin. Like seeing those types of shows, you see that type of black love. You're like, I want to strive for that. So when you make it to that point, am I going to give my all, or am I going to kick back and be like, hey, no, I'm good. Like I made it here. I got me a good looking woman. She like, no, that's not the way this works, man. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be in a position to serve. You have to be in a position to make the commitment necessary. And if you can't commit to you, if you can't commit to being better than maybe the shithead you were in the past, or the guy you were who wasn't willing to put in the work in that relationship before, the shitty communicator that you were,
Oh
then you're
man.
not, then yeah, marriage sounds like it's a hell of it. That's too much work for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to put in that kind of work. I don't even work on
Mm-hmm.
myself that much. You think I'm gonna work with somebody else on that? Like, so that's the type of mentality that you have, that you take into that relationship. So yeah, seeing marriage is like, I don't know, and then money, and then right, yeah, that's like to Ken's point. That's broke people problems,
But
right?
Yeah.
everything that you've heard when it comes to like just trying to establish a relationship or get back into a relationship, right? Some of these people probably came out of marriage or they want to be there. Some of the men, they came out of a marriage, they want to be into a marriage again. They always have these horror stories of how wife filed for divorce. There's the narrative out there that women initiate the divorce the majority of the time. In essence, did we as men, did we ruin our own marriages the majority of the time? Is this why the women are filing for divorce now?
I mean, it's a situation by situation basis. At the end of the day, I think that there's a misconception as to what am I gaining from marriage in the first place, right? If like to the point, like the question is, does marriage being an incentive to me, is that more important to me than marriage in general, to marry the woman that I love? Or is it something that I view as par for the course? Like if I'm looking at that, it's not a coincidence that I'm putting myself out there in a relationship and into a marriage, and that marriage fails. Is that a testament to the amount of work I was willing to put in? Or is it a testament to the fact that we were incompatible, right? Was it commitment issues, right? Because a lot of times people like to point to money, and money is one of the smallest percentage reasons
Yeah,
why divorce
irreconcilable
happens in the first place.
differences.
Yeah,
That's the
you know,
majority. Yeah.
it's the fact that we dated for 6 months or a year. We thought we fell into this whirlwind of love. We get married, and then I realized a year later, you're not who the hell I thought you were. And we actually moved in together, and I noticed you were messy and that we had a ton of issues, and I didn't like your family. So to my point earlier, like, where's the fire? Like, I don't understand what that rush is to get into that marriage in the first place. And granted, at the end of the day, it's funny that the numbers show that, you know, Black women get married at a much higher rate than any other nationality, but they also get divorced at a much higher rate than any other nationality. And that's not a coincidence. I believe that we have something to do with that. I believe there's a level of accountability that we have to have as men to say, okay, cool, what could I have done to be a better partner? But there's also accountability on women's side too, right? What did I miss? Whether we shared kids together, whether we had the greatest of relationships and we're just, you know, husband and wife and things just didn't work out. My career veered this way, her career veered this way. What level of culpability do I have in that? And I'm a big believer that you don't. Now, granted, second marriages in the divorce at a much higher rate than first marriages do.
Oh,
so
really?
if it didn't work for this one, more than likely for the next one, it's going to be a little rougher. But at the end of the day, if you're getting married at 22, 23, 24 years old, I didn't get married until I was 30. Me and my wife were together for 6 years before that. So the level of familiarity to me helped. And one morning you wake up and you realize, like, what am I doing? Right? As a man, what am I doing? I need to make the commitment necessary for me to make me feel like I'm contributing what I feel necessary outside of paying a mortgage or taking care. Like, those are all great things, but a woman can also do that herself these days, right? This isn't the 1960s anymore.
Right.
So am I carrying my weight in that relationship, and am I putting myself in a position to win for us together? And am I encouraging your success as well in that relationship? Because sometimes that can get lost too. We get a little salty that they're growing at a good rate, or they're in a corporate position, and we feel salty about that, and we think she's not paying attention when she's just putting on her grind just like we are. So do I respect that level of grind just as much as I respect my own?